based on the characters and world of dreams and magic and shared dreams. Players take on the roles of either the Animus or the Nemesis in Cardweaver. Thank you for joining me today at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Kevin Delp. This game, Cardweaver, is a 1 to 4 player board game that plays in about 30 to 45 minutes. It is a fantasy deck building game with a one versus many mechanic. It is being published by Odin Publishing and is coming to Kickstarter this February. They sent us this prototype copy to look at. At the beginning of the game, players choose if they'll be part of the many and choose an Animus to play, or the one and play as the Nemesis. You'll get the character card that shows the starting health, base attack, and defense. The Nemesis player also gets a character card. The health is actually the number times the number of Animus players. Each player gets a starting deck of cards that includes Conviction, Assault, and Guard cards. Each player also has an additional deck of cards that they'll use to create their dreamscape during the game. Here's a quick overview of Cardweaver. You're going to be playing cards from your hand in turn order. You're going to be able to purchase cards from your own personal dreamscape. You'll also be able to attack other players or player. So either you're playing as a Nemesis, which is the one player, or you're basically playing as the Animus, which is the many, and you're going to be attacking each other depending on what side you're on. And you're going to be trying to get the opposing player or players down to 0 health. You play Conviction to gain a card from your own personal dreamscape. This new card goes into your discard pile. You can also discard up to 2 cards from your hand to gain more Conviction. There are also cards in the Universal deck that any player can purchase from. There's different kinds of cards, like ones with unique symbols. You can't have more than 1 copy of that card in play. Quick cast cards have the Lightning Bolt and can be played out of turn. Many of them help defend you. Permanent cards with the infinity symbol remain in play. You can gain experience the first time you deal damage on your turn, and the Nemesis automatically gains 1 at the start of their turn. Experience will help you become more powerful throughout the game. Not only do you get access to new abilities, you also keep the lower ones too. These abilities are not only on your character card, but also on other cards. Each character has unique abilities that unlock on their character cards. There are Nightmare cards in the Nemesis deck, and when they are revealed, the Nemesis player places the Nightmare in the discard pile of one of the Animus players. These cards are pretty nasty and can really hurt the players, like losing experience and reducing defense. The game can end a number of different ways. The Animus players can win the game if they can make the Nemesis player get their health down to 0. Or the Nemesis player can win the game if they can make all the Animus players get their health down to 0. There is one other way of the game ending, and that is if any one player, cannot refill their dreamscape. If that's the case, then players count up the victory points from the cards they own. The points are shown on the purple shields. Whoever has the most points would then win. Now, there are rules for 1 and 2 player games, but this game shines at the 3 and 4 player count because the Nemesis can then attack multiple players at one time, and those multiple players can attack that Nemesis player. In this game, like any good deck building games, you're going to be able to get cards from your dreamscapes, in this case, and you're going to be able to then put them in your discard pile, and then eventually you'll be able to play them, and those cards make your deck better and better. The Pyromancer has a lot of fire type cards: Burning, Flaming, Fireballs, Infernos, Purging, and more. The Songstress has different types of cards, including song type cards: Encore, Songs of Courage, Act 2, Fluidity, and cards like that. The Hacker has a lot of different kinds of knives that appear to be electronic, and also cards like Backdoor and Virus ones. The Cybercop has a lot to do with enforcement and officers protecting, pursuing, detaining, and more. Now we have access in the prototype to 2 different Nemesis decks, the Blood Drinker and the Undead Warlord. Let's take a minute and look at some of the cards from the Dreamscape from the Undead Warlord deck. As you might expect, there are Undead and Reaver type cards, Skeletons, Skeleton Lords, the Corrupt Sword's pretty powerful, and the Evil Plan can really help you get cards into your hand if you need it. Now in Card Weaver, everyone's deck pretty much starts out the same with Conviction and Guarding and Attacking, but then the game gets more interesting because every player has a unique deck, a unique dreamscape that they're going to be purchasing from. So as the gameplay progresses, the game gets really interesting because players' decks are very different from each other. And I think that's definitely interesting and different for this deck building game. For many deck building games, you are purchasing cards from a shared deck where all players can purchase cards from, like in Dominion. And there are other asymmetric deck building games out there, but in many cases, those asymmetric deck building games, the players are pulling from a deck of cards, but usually are only pulling one or two cards, being able to look at those and then being able to use those. Whereas in Card Weaver, you're able to pull from a dreamscape. So you have 5 different options to choose from, depending on how much conviction you can use on a given turn. So there's definitely more options available to you to purchase cards from your own asymmetric deck, so that your deck is totally different from another player's deck. Now this is just a prototype, but the artwork works very well for the game and matches the character abilities and titles. If you're looking for a one versus many asymmetric fantasy deck building game, then check out Card Weaver from Odin Publishing on Kickstarter this February, and as always, we'd love for you to subscribe to Tantrum House.